Am I the jerk for uninviting my brother-in-law from my son's graduation party because he disagrees with my son's college choice? My son is graduating high school in 2 weeks. He also got into an Ivy League school for college, which made me even prouder. Here's the problem. My wife and several family members, including her brother and father, all went to this same Ivy League school. My wife really pushed for him to go there, an unhealthy amount in my opinion. She has always run a tight ship with his schooling over the years, while I've been more lax and said that if he is legitimately trying his hardest between school and extracurricular and social life, then all is okay even if he struggles sometimes. Now that the payoff is here, the wife was insistent that he goes to this school. I've told him he could go anywhere he wants and go into whatever field he wants, or he could even take a gap year or go straight to work, whatever makes him happy. He got into an Ivy League school. He showed he's good enough, now let him follow his dreams. My son did 2 visits to this school and confided in me that he did not want to go there because of both the culture, and he felt like the program he was interested in was better at another school. He was scared to tell his mom to disappoint her. The 3 of us sat down and talked about how he was feeling. The wife was clearly disappointed but accepted his decision, although we did get into an argument a week later about how he might regret this years from now. Once the news broke that he would not be going to the Ivy League school, the wife's family expressed their disagreement with the decision. I laid down the law with how this was his choice, and he's still going to an excellent school, and he's pursuing his passion, so I will not tolerate any harassing him or telling him that he's making the wrong choice. Most did not put up much of a fight, but the wife's brother is being a real jerk about it. All 3 times that we've seen him in the past 2 months since this all started, he has made comments to my son about how the Ivy League school is much better and such. I yelled at him last time when I saw it, and he lamely apologized. My son's graduation is in 2 weeks, and his party with family and friends will be a few days after that. My son told me privately that he does not want his uncle to be there because he is uncomfortable around him and doesn't want to feel that way at his party. I said okay, no problem, and texted brother-in-law, that he needs to sit the party out because he is making my son feel bad for his choices. As can be expected, I am now under fire from the wife's family. Everyone's mad I'm excluding him from celebrating my son's accomplishments and that my son can toughen up and whatnot. And my wife is mad that I went over her head. I felt like my wife would not be willing to cut out her brother, so I made the decision myself. I can accept partial blame for going over her head, but I have no regrets otherwise. Am I the a-hole? I think you are not in the wrong here. Prioritizing your son's wishes is crucial, especially when it comes to his comfort and well-being. It's important to stand up for your child and give him a voice in family matters. This kind of support shows what a great father figure looks like. Am I the jerk for not agreeing to be adopted by my stepdad like my siblings? My father passed away when I, 16 years old female, was 7, and my younger siblings were 4 years old male, 3 years old male, and 2 years old female. I was 8 when my mother met my stepfather. He moved in with us when I was 9, and we all got along well. I really liked how happy he made my mom, and one thing that really won me over was that nobody referred to him as our dad or told us that he was going to be our new parent. To me, he was more of a friend, and to my siblings, he was more of a parent. However, I was older, remembered my dad well, and never expressed an interest in having another dad. 2 years ago, things started to change. My siblings all started calling my stepfather dad, and the topic of adoption came up. I have never called my stepfather dad before, and I don't introduce him as my dad. He has always been John to me. I don't view him in the same way that my siblings do. They know about our dad. He's talked about, there are photos around the house, but to them, John is the dad they know, so they have a very different bond with him. I think he's really good to my siblings and me, and our mom, and I know he was very happy when my siblings started calling him dad. It happened gradually, but it happened. A few weeks after the adoption discussions began, my mom asked me how I felt about John becoming my dad. I told her it was never going to happen. To me, he's John. He's not my dad, and I don't think of him in that way. My mom suggested I could try out calling him dad to see how it made me feel, but I declined. A few months later, while we were ice skating, he asked me why I didn't join the conversation about adoption, and I told him it wasn't a conversation I felt I should join since I didn't want to be adopted. He asked if there was anything he could do for me to want that, but I told him honestly that there wasn't, and I'd rather he just continue being John. My siblings all asked John to officially adopt them for his birthday last month, and I chose not to be a part of it. This upset my siblings, and when my mom and John noticed my name missing from the request, it upset them as well. This led to a big discussion. My siblings told me we should all be adopted together, and that if they get adopted but I don't, our relationship will be different. I assured them I wouldn't see them any differently, but they said they would see me differently because I don't want our family to truly become real. After that, my mom and John spoke to me separately and urged me to reconsider. John expressed his love for me and his desire to be my dad as well. However, I continued to decline, and now all these relationships have changed. Am I the asshole? I think you are not in the wrong here. It's completely normal for siblings to have different relationships with a step-parent, and not wanting to be adopted doesn't mean there's a lack of love or respect. This relationship change should come with consent and shouldn't feel forced, as it can create resentment and make one feel unheard. Your feelings and boundaries are important, and they should be respected instead of being manipulated into compliance. Am I the jerk for telling my parents they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my disabled siblings because I will not be the solution? I have two older siblings who were both born with severe disabilities. Their disabilities are related to an inheritable gene that both my parents were carriers of. They had me so their disabled children would have someone to take care of them when they were gone. Once they knew I wasn't disabled at birth, they no longer cared about my future because it was set in stone in their minds. I was raised to take over the care of both my siblings. I was taught what to do, how to do it, and my parents interfered in my success. They would pull me out of school a few times, enough to cause trouble but timed just right to throw me off and leave me behind at school. Their aim was for me to do badly enough to either drop out or not graduate from high school, so then I wouldn't leave for college. But I worked my ass off to do the best I could. My grades weren't great upon graduating, but they were the best they could be given the circumstances. I actually only learned about my risk of being a carrier in my final 2 months of high school. My parents didn't care because they never planned for me to marry or have kids, because again, I was supposed to be a carer for the rest of my life. I moved out of my parents' house after high school, and I'm in college now. My parents hate it. I'm mostly estranged and have not told them yet, but I got checked for the gene because I always wanted kids, but I knew I didn't want to risk having children with the same disabilities as my siblings. I'm not a carrier, but it made me more angry at my parents for not caring. They leave voicemails pretty frequently shaming me for going to college, moving away, and not supporting them or my siblings. They talked about how out of practice I will be, so I decided to call them, and over the phone I told them I was not coming back, and that they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my siblings because I won't be the solution. I won't sacrifice the rest of my life to care for them. My parents told me that was disgusting to say, and I should love my siblings more than enough to care for them, especially when they are the highest risk adults. Am I the asshole? Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk, Aita. At all. Your parents are major AHS for trying to derail your education and guilt-tripping you for pursuing your own life. They figured birthing a caretaker would be cheaper, but you are a person, not their plan. You don't owe them or your siblings anything. You deserve to live your own life. Am I the jerk for telling my spouse's parents and sibling not to involve me in their disturbing plan to erase his deceased partner? I am married to a widower. We have been married for 4 years. One thing I've always known is that his love for Tasha has never faded. He never wants it to fade. He misses her every single day, as do his children, my stepchildren. He struggled with the idea of finding someone else, not least of all because his family started pushing 13 months after his loss. In time, he wanted this himself, and we fell in love. But I've always known there would be no Yus without his loss. I was never jealous or insecure about that. I love his love for Tasha. It tells me how amazing he is as a person. It's also good for his kids to see the love he still holds for their mom. The kids being good with us was the most important thing to us when we became something more. The only condition they had for their support was regarding their mom. They didn't want her to be forgotten. They didn't want my husband to stop talking about her or for her photos to disappear from the house. Some came down, but they're still in the house, just not on the walls, and there are still photos of her around. It works. I tell my daughter, too, and will tell my son I'm pregnant with that she's their big sibling's mom and daddy's late wife. They'll know who she is and what she means to our family. But my husband's parents and sister don't like that Tasha is still very much loved and kept alive. They didn't like her. They didn't approve of their son brother marrying at 20 and loving someone who came from a very unfavorable family. They judged Tasha for it harshly. They think I'm far better, so they expected me to replace Tasha. They were especially horrified that my husband keeps a photo of Tasha in his wallet and on his desk at work. There are also photos of me in both. Recently, they brought this up with me and told me I should forbid my husband from doing this. They said it is horribly disrespectful to me, and it has prevented my husband's teenage children from truly embracing me as their mother. They told me to march right up to him in front of everyone and tell him that he cannot keep photos of his late wife anymore. It bothered me so much that they were so callous about it. I told them not to use me in their scheme to erase Tasha because I wanted no part of it. They focused on the sick and twisted aspect, and they are saying I called them sick and twisted and accused me of overreacting to their support. My husband was furious with them when he heard and told them to be thankful his kids hadn't heard them. Am I the asshole though? It's disturbing and twisted how some people try to manipulate others to conform to their flawed standards. Instead of trusting their son to make the right decisions for himself, they impose conditional love, which is simply wrong. Your husband needs to have a stern talk with them and make it clear that their actions will naturally create distance and diminish their role in his life. These manipulative individuals need to be removed from your lives for a healthier and happier future. Am I the jerk for calling my mother-in-law and sister-in-law ignorant in front of family friends? I have been married to my husband James for just over a year. My name is Kiara. It's pronounced like Keira Knightley, not like Sierra or Kiara. My in-laws struggled with my name when we met despite constant corrections. They default to Sierra. My sister-in-law made comments about embracing the Sierra pronunciation instead of my correct one. She even suggested I use the same spelling as Keira Knightley. James quickly told her to cut that out and to accept my name the way it is. I understand that sometimes they slip up on my name and default to what most people do over here. So I offered to let them use my middle name. But they also struggle with that even though I know they can say it. Because of this, we don't see his family often. I'm not someone who wants a fight, but I also don't tolerate disrespect. For my brother-in-law's birthday, we were around the rest of the family to celebrate him. During that time, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law introduced me to some of their family friends as Sierra. When I tried to make the correction, they spoke over me. I got upset and told them they shouldn't be so ignorant at their ages and stop purposefully using the wrong pronunciation to annoy me. I corrected both of them and told the family friends my name is Sierra, pronounced like Kira. Then I walked back to find my husband. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were not happy, and a small argument broke out because James and my brother-in-law defended me. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law argued that I went out of my way to shame them in front of other people, which they thought was wrong. It escalated to a point where James and I apologized to my brother-in-law and left. However, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law called afterwards and told me I had no right to make such a scene in front of their friends. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here, Ape. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law are deliberately doing this, and it's an easy name to say. Your husband would have mentioned your name out loud before they ever saw it spelled, so they definitely know how it sounds. It's basic respect to say someone's name correctly, and refusing to learn it after being corrected multiple times says, I don't care about who you are. Maybe the solution is to start deliberately butchering their names to make a point. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law I find it weird she's so against adults living with their parents? My sister-in-law has a 22-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son. Her daughter has been struggling lately and asked if she could move back in after she finishes college. My sister-in-law was very quick to say no way, never. You don't move back in with your parents after you're an adult, and that she's definitely an adult. She asked my husband and me if we'd be okay with it, and we said sure. My sister-in-law was shocked we let her daughter move in and was asking how we could be okay with it. I told her I lived with my parents until I moved here, so it wasn't a big deal to me. This sparked a conversation where she told me she found that so weird, and she never really listened when I mentioned growing up in a multi-generational home. She said she could not imagine and found it hard to picture that as the normal way. I said it's not something everyone does, but the shame isn't there as much. I said I'm sure there are people who do want to move out ASAP and parents who want it too, but culturally it's way more accepted. She asked if that was why I looked so shocked by what she was saying, and I told her that her hard stance against it was weird to me because I was raised in a home that viewed things very differently. She took offense to this and said I should understand how wrong it is for her, and I didn't need to come for her. I told her I wasn't. I was just expressing my feelings like she was, but she really didn't like what I said. My husband told her she was overreacting. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here, Ape. It's really astonishing that some people can't accept that the world doesn't follow their timeline for children leaving the nest. With property costs skyrocketing, it's becoming almost a necessity for young adults to stay with their family longer. The role of parents is to support their children until they're ready to be independent, whether that's through school or starting a career. It's pretty hypocritical to criticize others for helping their kids while not offering any solutions themselves. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.